Jamie made all of his money off of playing cards. He started playing a game called War with his best friend on the bus, and later on in the story we find out that he cheated him, but early on we know that that's how he makes all his money. So Claudia's wants him to come with him because he has the money to fund the trip. So on a Wednesday, they set off, they get on the bus, they stay on the bus until the bus driver goes back to the lot and they get off, and then they start their journey to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They were going to take a bus, but Jamie insisted on saving money. He's very frugal with money, so instead they walked all 42 blocks to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Their first night in was a little nerve-wracking because they weren't quite sure what to do, where to hide, so they packed all their clothing in a trumpet case and a violin case. When they got there, they hid in the bathrooms and waited for the staff to leave. So they hid in the bathroom, and when the staff left, they went out and they explored. They decided to hide their belongings all throughout the Metropolitan Museum of Art, so that way nobody would get suspicious if they found one thing. And they slept in a bed at night, they would brush their teeth in the bathrooms, they'd wake up in the morning before the staff came in, they'd hide in the bathroom, so they went through this routine every day. One day, they came across this thing, and it was a statue of an angel. This is my second item. And this angel brought many visitors to the museum. And everybody was interested in this angel, everybody wanted to know what it was about, it was a huge exhibit. And luckily, Claudia and Jamie had the opportunity to explore it after hours. And Claudia and Jamie became obsessed with this angel. They wanted to know more about it, they wanted to know who created it, and there was rumors that it was created by Michelangelo. But there was not proven evidence that it was. So they started to look for clues to figure out who exactly created the statue. So throughout their whole time there, they explored every aspect of the museum, but mostly focusing on this angel. Another item I have is all this change. I have this change to represent everything they lived off of while living in the museum. They lived off of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters, because that's all Jamie had for his money. They would buy food with that every day, and Jamie kept them on a very tight budget. And at night when they would bathe in the fountain, they would sometimes steal money from the fountain as well. So, next, one night, they discover a clue about this angel. And they really want to know whether or not it was really made by Michelangelo. And they find this clue. It's 3 circles with an M inside of it. And they went to the library. They did a lot of research on Michelangelo because they really wanted to know what it was all about. So they went to the library and they looked up this symbol. And they found that it was a symbol of Michelangelo that he leaves on his sculptures. So they get this brilliant idea that they're going to write a letter. So they wrote a letter. And the next day, they went in and they gave it to the head of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. And the letter was saying that they found this symbol and that they think it is linked to Michelangelo. And they would just wanted to make the museum aware that it could potentially be a sculpture made by Michelangelo. So the kids are really excited. They're really nervous because they're waiting for their letter back. So they went and bought a P.O. box. And that Jamie had to pay for that. He wasn't very happy. So they went and bought a P.O. box and said to return the letter there. So they were waiting for a response. They waited and waited, and they finally got a response saying that they had already discovered that about the sculpture. So the only other thing they knew about this sculpture is that it was auctioned off by Mrs. Basil Frankweiler for $225 at an auction. So that's all they know, and they looked up research on Mrs. Basil Frankweiler, and they found that she now lives in Farmington, Connecticut. So one day, Jamie and Claudia decide that they're going to take a bus to Farmington, Connecticut, and they're going to talk to Mrs. Basil Frankweiler. So they show up at her house one day, and they go in, and they talk to her, and they start a conversation. And they weren't going to tell where they were from, and Mrs. Basil Frankweiler recognized them as the kids that had gone missing. So Mrs. Basil Frankweiler listens to their story and wants to know what they're there for. She soon finds out that they're there to find out about the angel. And Mrs. Basil Frankweiler goes, I have filing cabinets all along this wall. She goes, I'll give you 1 hour. So I have this folder. She said, I'll give you 1 hour to look through all the filing cabinets and see if you can find the folder on the statue of the angel and find out who the sculptor is. So Claudia and Jamie got down to business, and they narrowed it down, and I'm not going to tell you the end of the story because you'll have to continue reading to find out. And that is the story of From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler.